Hi, welcome back to Expertly Dyed Art by Science. My name is Jennifer Beamer, the owner and operator, and this is video number 2 in my series of breaking in a new wheel. And that's exactly what I've been doing. This is the 3rd take of the video, and now that I understand my wheel, I can actually talk to you guys about it. So, my last video I meant to talk about how to oil the wheel and I completely forgot, so I'm going to talk about it right now. So this wheel needs more maintenance, so I need to use oil in some places. My babe wheel, I used to put the bobbin on and just go right through to making my yarn. However, these really nice princess wheels, they need a little bit more maintenance to keep them working properly. So there's a few places where you need to put the oil. The first place is right here. This is at the orifice. Put a little oil right there. And then I usually put some right here by the bobbin. Right there on either side. And then right here where it's articulating with this thing. Okay. Then if you come down here to the wheel crank, there's a little hole down here that needs to be oiled. Okay. And then on the back side here. And then the 2 foot pedals also need a little bit of oil. So I'm going to put a little bit of oil there, and a little bit here. And that's pretty much it. I used to only oil my babe wheel pretty much when it was getting squeaky, which maybe it was every 2 or 3 months. So I'm a bad spinning wheel owner. But with this one, I'm really going to take good care of it. So, and when you spend enough money on something that you really like using, you tend to follow directions and try to take care of it as best as you can. So, before I even put yarn on, I usually double check to make sure everything's working correctly and I have the correct whorl on, which I didn't earlier. And then we did some troubleshooting and figured out, oh, the reason why the yarn wasn't going onto the bobbin was because there wasn't enough tension from this whorl being a little bit bigger to help pull the yarn actually onto the bobbin. So, hooray! Having a husband who knows something about physics can help, because I had no idea why it wasn't working, and I've been using wheels for a really long time, and I'm used to troubleshooting on my own. Anyway, so be sure to oil your wheel. It keeps it working very smoothly. Now, this yarn is actually the yarn that I was spinning in my last video. I did 2 bobbins of this. It's very pretty. Ooh, very pretty. Yeah, and it's sparkly. There's 30% nylon in here. Firestar actually is what it's called. And it gives us this nice little shimmer. Anyway, I was going to do fractal plying where I took 4-ounce braid, divided it into 2 ounces, and I was going to spin a single on one bobbin and a single on another bobbin. And then the colors would line up such that when I plied them together, I would have this really nice, consistent color change. But because I don't have the scale here in Korea yet, I couldn't weigh the fiber before I started spinning, so one bobbin ended up being much fatter than the other, and I figured that if I were to apply them together, the colors would be really off. And since this is one of those colorways, if you can see right here, it's one of those colorways that has some extreme changes in color from purple to yellow, and even though purple is a complement of yellow, I think it would be too much for the project that I was going to do, which is eventually a shawl. So instead of doing a fractal plying 2-ply, I will be doing a Navajo 3-ply. So you can get a close-up here what my hands are doing. Basically, to get it started, all you need to do is make a slip knot. Right? You do this with 1 strand of yarn. You do not need 3 individual strands, you just need 1. And then I'm going to take this loop and pull through this piece of yarn down here. And of course it's all twisted on itself because I just let it stop. Okay. So I'm going to be making a 3-ply out of a 2-ply. Okay, so I pull up this yarn through the hole, and I'm going to pull it maybe 12 inches, and then I'm going to add some spin. I'm going to catch it with my right hand such that I'm basically holding 3 pieces of yarn made out of one. So if you know how to do a crochet chain, this is exactly what I'm doing. So I'm just pulling up the yarn from my bobbin, and as I do that I pull it back and grab it again so that the yarn lies with the 2 sides of the loop. So we have the loop and then we have the piece that I'm pulling up. And this is actually one of my most favorite ways of plying, because I'm pretty lazy about making sure that I have exactly the right amount of yarn on each bobbin. So I mean, I'm a pretty good spinner, but I'm not a really consistent spinner, so sometimes it's hard to make sure that I have equivalent amounts and that they're spun completely evenly so that they'll line up and I won't have a bunch of excess. Oh my goodness, I'm having some really big difficulties with this today. When you're first starting out and you're doing this kind of spinning, or plying rather, it's better to take smaller loops. With my babe wheel, I really talk about my babe wheel a lot, but it's because I'm so used to using it. My babe wheel, I used to do really big loops, and if you're a knitter, it's easier to hide the part where you are making the loops in your piece. If you have a lot of loops, and by loops I mean like this place right here, this is where the yarn kind of loops over itself, so there's like a little like a chain loop right here. I don't know if you can really see that, but when you're knitting, it's sometimes a pain in the butt if you can see it in your finished piece and you're trying to go for something that looks really good. But it's okay for this because there's so many color changes and it's going to be for me, so it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect yet. This is what breaking a wheel is all about, just practicing with a new wheel. Sometimes when you get so used to the wheel that you've been using that you don't know how to do something on a new wheel. I mean, I've made hundreds of skeins of 3-ply this way, but for whatever reason, I'm having a real hard time with it. So hopefully you can see that I'm having a hard time with it, and you know, I'm like a real person in your eyes. I'm not this strange machine who just thinks this is fun, because sometimes it can be very frustrating. But lucky for you, it wasn't captured on a video. We deleted those. Anyway, so if you're having a hard time, go slow, do smaller loops. Right? They can be maybe 6 inches instead of 12 inches, that's okay. If you're having a hard time with your yarn supply that's coming up, you can just go slower. You could put this on the floor or behind you, or which way you want to put it, such that it kind of stays out of the way or it doesn't kink up on itself, because this yarn has actually got a lot of spin in it. I wanted it to be a high twist 2-ply, and because I ended up making a 3-ply, it's going to be really tight. That's okay. It means it won't pill as much because the fibers are joined very tightly together. If you have a yarn that pills like crazy, it's probably because the spin on it wasn't very tight to begin with. So the fibers are working themselves loose from the yarn and making little sweater balls, basically. Anyway, so maybe we can do like one more close-up of my hands, and then we'll call this video finished. So I'm making loops. I'm also conscious of the color changes. If you do smaller loops, the color changes will appear more gradual. If they're bigger, then if you have a fiber that color changes pretty frequently, it might look a little strange because two of the plies might be one color and the third ply might be a completely different color. So you'll have to keep that in mind as well. So yeah, once you get started, it goes pretty quickly. The one thing that you have to remember is you're using one length of yarn to make a 3-ply. So if you have 300 yards of a single, you're going to make approximately 100 yards of a 3-ply done this way, because you're basically cutting the yardage in third. And of course, by 1/3 I mean 2/3. So yeah, I hope this video has been useful for you. And if you have any questions, if you have requests, if there's something that you can't see or you still don't understand, I will try and do another video to make sure that it's clear. If you post questions or comments, I will reply to you. If there's anything else you need, you can always just let me know. I'm usually pretty helpful, and I know quite a bit. So even if I don't, I'll do some research to try and help you out. Anyway, so please subscribe to the video if you want to see more, and check out my blog. It's down below in the info section. I also have an Etsy site, which I hope to be up and running soon, because we found out that 3 of our boxes arrived back in America, and they're being shipped back. And one of them is my drum carder, so I'll actually be able to make new bats for sale on my Etsy site. And then I also have Twitter and Facebook, so that you can also check out to see what I do there. Okay?